Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Billy. It's Sunday, September the 9th. Wasn't really planning on doing any videos today, but I was just bouncing around online and I looked and I saw something about Burt Reynolds dying. So I knew I had to turn on the camera and say a few things because Burt Reynolds is one of the handful of celebrities that I met who was really cool. And the terms on which I met him were very unique. So I wanted to share that story and talk about it. I got my guitar with me because that's part of the story. um, First of all, let me say this. When I was growing up, there was pretty much three guys. I mean, that are men amongst men that no one is like. And that was Sylvester Stallone, Clint Eastwood, and Burt Reynolds. And those three guys were, the ones I when I looked at, said, "Wow, if I could be just like anybody in the movies, it would be one of those three guys." And I watched a lot of their films. But of the three, I have to say the truth, as far as monologues and one-liners and a catalog. Well, Clint and Burt were about as the same as far as the volume and catalog of the movies and the one-liners and stuff. But Burt may be a little bit more. Like when you're talking about Deliverance, Gator, White Lightning, movies like that. Even some of the stuff like Stick and some of the other stuff. Burt Reynolds, or The Longest Yard. I mean, Burt Reynolds, man, he was just for the longest time. So anyway, I'll give you a little piece of my story here. When I was living in the Valley back in 1991, I worked at an all-night newsstand called the Laurel Canyon Newsstand. It was right there on the corner of Moore Park and Laurel Canyon Road. And I would work the night shift from 11 to 7. And we'd get celebrities that would come by, and rock stars pretty often, and mostly they had attitudes and they wouldn't talk to anybody. So anyway, one night I'm sitting there and I was sitting at the cash register, and I always have my guitar with me, because the nights were long. And I remember it was probably just before 3 a.m., so it was pretty late or pretty early. And I would keep an eye when people would come up, and straggle around the newsstand, because I could see the whole newsstand because it was along the sidewalk and I was the only one working. So I could always see if someone was, gonna take something. And there were cameras too, all kinds of cameras. So I was sitting there, and a car pulled up, Cadillac, and the guy got out, and I didn't think much of it. And I just, looked at him. He's an older guy, middle-aged guy, and he was looking at some of the magazines. And I was just doing my thing, and as I looked over, he was probably 12 to 15 feet away from me. I was like, something about him looks familiar, but I don't know what it is. He's very heavy set, wearing a big jacket, and he had a lot of gold rings and rose-colored glasses. The hair was grayish and white. And I said, "Who is that?" And I've been in that position before where I knew I was going to figure out who it was, and then it's usually some kind of rock star, because I hadn't met any movie stars really. Well, a couple, but they were small. But I was looking at him, I go, something about him is familiar, and I just can't figure out who it is. And then I said, I looked, and then it just hit me. And 1 second I said, "Holy crap, that's Burt Reynolds." I go, "That's Burt Reynolds," And I mean, like I said, I loved all his movies growing up, and he was like, he such a hero to me from the screen. So I had my guitar, and I picked up my guitar, and it was very quiet, because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was just over on the other side, and I was on one side. And I remember when I picked up my guitar, I went. That was all I played. Yeah, the dueling banjos from the movie Deliverance. So I started playing that, and as soon as I did that, he turned over, he kind of looked at me, and he looked at me, and he said, "Oh, well, thank you very much." I didn't, my perception about him is that he was a hard nose, because I had seen some stuff about him on the Howard Stern show, and like he's very hard with critics and reporters and people who come up to him in public. So I figured maybe if he just looked and smiled, then I wouldn't say anything. I'd just ring him up when he left. But when he said that, I just looked at him. I go, "Man, I absolutely love that movie." I said, "I've watched that movie so many times, and it's such a classic film." And then he started walking towards me and talking to me. He said, "Well, thank you. I said, I forgot the name of the character in the movie." And he goes, "Lewis Medlock." And he told me the name of the guy in the movie. I said, "That's it." I said, "Man," and there's a line on the box of the movie. It said, "What really happened on the Kahulawasi," which is the name of the river that they were doing shooting the movie on, where the narrative takes place. And I said, so what really did happen on the Kahoolawassee? So we started laughing. And I said, where was that filmed? And so he started telling me, that it was in Georgia. They filmed it. And, in some national park or something. And I said, wow, it was beautiful scenery. I said, didn't you do your own stunts on that? He said, yep. I was younger back then and I did my own stunts. I said, that's pretty cool, man. I said, do you ever go up there? He goes, as a matter of fact, I go up there every year. So he told me every year since the movie has been shot, pretty much up till that time anyway, 91, that he would go up there and he would visit the area because he liked it so much and it had a sentimental value to him. And I said, do you ever see the kid? I said, who played the banjo? He said, he told me, actually, I see him every single year I go up there, and he's a full grown man now. He told me, obviously, and he has his own family and he runs a gas station up there. I said, wow. I said, that is pretty funny. I said, how did they teach the kid to play like that? And then Burt kind of just gave me this look. And he comes up behind me and he goes, let me show you how they shot that scene. He goes, hold your guitar. So I was holding my guitar and Burt came up behind me. He said they had a professional guitar player come up behind him and put his hands through. And he explained to me how they shot the entire scene, with him playing the dueling banjos with, I forget the other guy's name. It's, Angelina Jolie's father, that guy. And he told me how they shot the scene. And I was just so impressed with how personable he was to me and how nice he was, and he wasn't like a celebrity at all. He just made me feel like I was his friend, which was pretty cool. I said, my mom really loves you. Think I can get an autograph? He said, sure. So he wrote down his autograph to my mom. He wrote my mom's name on a piece of paper. I think I mailed it to her or something. And I remember I said something to him, but I said, well, it was really nice meeting you, man. And I shook his hand, and I thought, wow, man, too bad he's not doing movies anymore, because at that time, that's when he was in all the tabloids with Lonnie Anderson, and the divorce was being finalized. So everything was up in the air for him. And I know he's having a hard time. And as he walked to the Cadillac, I walked over with him. I said, so what do you think, Burt? You going to do any more Smokey and the Bandit movies? And he turned around and he looked at me and he laughed and he shook his head. He goes, I'm almost ready for a friggin' walker. I don't think that was the word. I think he might have said another F word. I'm almost ready for a friggin' walker. No more Smokey and the Bandit movies. So then he got in the car and he took off. And I remember thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool, like if he could do a comeback or something like that. And I'll get to that in a second. I'm almost finished here. And the next night I showed up to work, and I'd show up early around 7. And my boss had cameras. It was kind of like a walkway like you see here. And the magazines were set up along the side. And my boss had a camera. And what he would do was he would watch the videos from the night before. And I remember I showed up to work, and I heard him on the intercom. And usually he wouldn't call us up to the office unless we were going to get in trouble about something. So he called me up to the office. And he goes, Billy, come up here. I'm like, oh, man, what did I do? So I go up there, and when I sit down, he goes, sit down. And he looks at me with this serious look. He was like a Middle Eastern guy. His name was Cammy. He was Persian or something. He goes, last night you meet Burt Reynolds. I said, yeah, did you see that, man? He's like, yeah, I seen the whole thing. And we were having a big laugh about it because he had watched he was there for about 10 minutes and I was talking to him. I wish now, in retrospect, that I would have asked him for a copy of the video or something, because it would have been pretty cool, as it were. But it didn't turn out that way. Anyway, the really cool thing is that the following year, 1992, Burt Reynolds did end up making a comeback, and he did a movie with Demi Moore called Striptease. And the movie was awesome. He lost a lot of weight in the movie. And I remember that was the first role we ever seen Burt play where it was known like a satire, where he was a comedian. He was funny, he was so funny and he was so witty. And I remember when I watched that movie, I thought it's really good to see Burt, looking good and just being Burt Reynolds. He looked like Burt Reynolds again, because he didn't look much like Burt Reynolds when I met him. You could tell he was going through a hard time. But it was real nice to have that interaction with him and have that time with him. And I don't know if Burt was saved or not, if he believed in the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm afraid to think about it or ask. But I hope he was, because I really liked him. And I know there's media sources over the years who've done little stories on him, or they kind of poke fun at him. Like, I think it was like TMZ or some of those people. And it's like, you know what? F you, man. Don't make fun of Burt. Burt Reynolds is a man amongst men, okay? He is macho before macho was macho, okay? And his inspiration in his films are way more than any of these guys who portray to be macho, you know what I mean, in films now, whoever they are. And then when they turn off the cameras, they're a bunch of sodomites or something, you know what I mean? That's not Burt Reynolds. That's not Clint Eastwood. That's not Sylvester Stallone or any of them guys. So, thumbs up to those guys, especially Burt Reynolds, man. He was a big influence on me, and I hope he was saved. And the hell with anybody else who tries to say, that he's like some kind of idiot, or they try to downplay his accomplishments. That's because they're jealous, because they were never as talented as Burt Reynolds has been throughout his whole career. And that's all I got to say on Burt Reynolds. I just wanted to share that. I know it's not a gospel message, but I seen it in the paper or online today, and it was shocking to me, so I wanted to say something about Burt Reynolds. Okay,